Welcome to Meeples on Meeples, episode 31. I'm Andrew.
I'm Brian.
I'm Ian.
First, I'd like to have you join us on our YouTube and Facebook. We do have a Twitter, if you check that out. This week we played Forbidden Island.
Forbidden Island is a cooperative game, meaning you're all working together against the board or the game itself. It's for 2 to 4 players, so it's kind of a smaller group game. But the basic idea is you lay out all these tiles randomly. This is the shape they suggest, although other people said there are other ways you could lay out. And do you think that really affect gameplay at all? I mean,
maybe a little.
You can maybe spread it out and make it a little harder, but this is the suggested shape of the island. And the goal is your explorers who have to get these 4 treasures, these really cool plastic pieces that serve no purpose but to look good. And then you need to get off the island. So there are 6 different roles you can play, represented by different colored pawns, and they all have their own starting spot, green on the green spot, red on the red, it shows in the corner, where they begin the game. During your turn, you can do a few things. You can do 3 actions. 1 movement is an action. Giving a card to somebody else on the same tile as you, exchanging treasure cards, is an action. Shoring up or saving island squares is an action. And I believe that about... and then capturing a treasure, cashing in, is an action.
Also, your special abilities are actions as well.
Yes, and each character, each color represents a different, like, excuse me, the blue is the pilot, the black is the diver, and you all have your own special abilities. This is true. Once you do your 3 actions, so I can go, 1, 2, shore up, do whatever, 3, okay, do my 3 actions, you draw 2 treasure cards. These are not shuffled well, so I got 2 of the same here. So you draw 2 treasure cards, and then you flip over island squares. At the beginning of the game, you start with 6 island squares flooded, and I'll do that at random. You would flip the top 6 cards, and you would flood those spots. So let's say that these were all flooded. This means you flip them over, and they're on the blue side to show that they have water on them. What is that, 5, 6? Okay, no, that's 5, if I could count. That's 6.
Well, we don't want the landing to get flooded.
We'll talk about that. That's important in a second. You don't want that flooded.
No.
It's your game right out.
So you do your turn, and then you draw 2 treasures, and then you flood more. Now, the game actually comes with a changeable difficulty, which is kind of a nice feature. Novice, which would be great for playing with kids. You've got normal, elite, legendary. We normally start on normal or elite. So you have this little flood card that says, we turn over 2 cards at the end of your turn. And you would flood and flip that spot over and flip another spot over. If one that's already flooded gets flipped again, it gets taken out of the game, right? The first time a card comes, it gets flooded. The second time, it's gone. So slowly the island will start to disappear or sink underwater. Then the next person goes. The goal is, in order to get a treasure, you have to get 4 of the same card, which we've got 2 of the stones right here. There's 3 and 4. Again, we didn't shuffle.
I don't think we shuffled.
And once you have those, you get to the spot on the island that has that symbol. These can be cashed in here. Temple of the Moon and where's the other one? Temple of the Sun. So when you get there, you spend 1 of your actions. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not to flip it. And then, okay, we've now got that treasure, and we can discard these. And eventually we need to get all 4 treasure before, I guess basically the island sinks, falls apart, whatever you want to call it. The challenge comes in that you have to save the spots, because if the Temple of the Moon and the Temple of the Sun disappear before we get that treasure, we can no longer win the game, because there's no place to cash in those cards. If the Fool's Landing were to disappear, we can't win the game, because that's the only place you can all take off from at the end of the game. You have to go back here and have a helicopter card to get off the island. How else can you lose the game? Oh, if you're on a spot that sinks, you have to be able to swim to another spot that's adjacent to it.
If there's no
and if you can't,
space,
then you sink and you die and you're out of the game. If one person dies, the whole game is over. Like, the whole team loses. You either win or lose together, basically.
It's not abandon your friend's game.
No, which can be fun, but...
And again, while you're flipping cards, keep in mind that there are cards that say Water Rise, which will pull as I throw cards everywhere. And that means this ticker slowly goes up, so if it goes up 1 more notch, now instead of flooding 2 island spots at the end of your turn, you'll flood 3. And if another Water Rise comes, this keeps going up. Pretty soon you're flipping 4 cards, and the island's sinking faster and faster, and it just becomes harder and harder to try to save island spots by flipping them back over and getting the treasure.
Right.
Well, the less places to move, they're actually more easy.
But that's the gist of the rules, Use your special abilities, make sure all the stuff doesn't flood, and away you go.
Yep. And you can save, once it's flipped over, it's not a lost cause. You can get right next to it or on it, and you can shore it up, meaning you can save the spot and flip it back over.
But once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, once it's gone, you can't save it.
You want to move into components?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
First off, all the little tiles are nice, double-sided. The artwork on them is pretty good, but they're actually sturdy cardboard. I haven't seen any warping or anything in it.
No, we played this quite a few times.
Which
I've
is
had
nice.
this for well over a year, so.
But the cards themselves are pretty good cardstock. I haven't seen any bent, ripped, nothing like that.
The pawns are a little plain. I mean, literally, it's not a guy, and it's just a colored pawn.
But they did spend some money on the treasures.
Yeah, there's really no point to have treasures this nice. I mean, they look really cool, but
they're super cool.
But why?
That is the point.
And just to look cool.
The slide rule for this guy, it's pretty sturdy. It actually sits on there pretty well, too.
It hugs it tightly so it won't get knocked loose, yeah.
I like that. A lot of the other games that we have, sometimes they get knocked around real ways. Some use like a circle donut. I mean, sometimes too, but I like the slide rule. It's fun.
And a stupid component issue that I really like is it comes in a tin. Which is, I mean, it's nice and small and compact, which is really easy for storage on when your shelves get full or for carrying around for a game night. But it's also just, it's a tin. It's kind of cool looking. It holds up well. It's not going to tear or fall apart on you.
Isn't that some parts raised, or is that...
Yeah, it's actually all raised. Yep, the artwork is.
Ooh,
stamped out.
How much does this game cost?
I believe the suggested is only like $18, and you can get it for like $14, $15 online. Yeah, it's relatively cheap. It's a heck of a deal.
The other thing, too, I like is... the print on them, it's pretty basic. The cards aren't super flashy, even though that some of them have pictures of, obviously, this one goes with this, but you can read it very well. It's not hard to read if somebody has it sitting over here to where.
And they included pictures because this is billed as a family-friendly game. So even if you have kids who can't read all the text, wherever, they can see the helicopter and they'll quickly learn like what that card does, and they'll know, oh yeah, that lets me move to another spot on the island.
And there's not, for being simple, it's just not. There's not a lot to it.
It's
easy to tell.
Everybody's character gets their order of play, and so you can make sure you're following along.
That's one of my big things, though, is being able to read what's on the card.
Yeah.
Or see what's on the card.
And it's all very simple. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very nice.
And as the island's flooding, these pictures match the pictures there, so it's easier to spot them.
It is, but it actually it's since it's a big board or potentially it's very very jumbled or together, so it's just kind of
and they all, some of them kind of look alike.
Right. And, so you have Bronze Gate, red,
the
Gold Gate,
Silver Gate. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does get repetitive a little bit, but overall not bad.
Yeah, other than that, that's just the basic
For
components.
the price, it has nice components.
Yeah, for the price, yeah, very nice. Strategy?
Work together. There you go. In unison. You have to work together and think a few moves ahead, a few turns ahead.
Major thing is, with your character pieces, each person, you got, 6 of them, and they all do different things. You can pick whichever ones you want, or if you want to randomize it, but a lot of these can work together very well. So make sure you know what the other characters and what your players can do before you do too late. Because one guy can flip 2, one guy can fly from this side to this side.
Another strategy is don't plan on thinking, like let's say Fool's Landing, remember, that's the helicopter pad. Once that one's gone, the game's over because you can't escape. So don't make the mistake of thinking, because I've done this before, the chances of the second Fool's Landing card coming up and sinking that are slim. I'm not going to bother to shore up or save that. You have to move over there and then use a turn of an action to shore it up. I've in the past thought, there's only 2 cards, we're not going to get to it, and then sure enough, without fail, that one floods again and the game's over.
Well, and
you have to really be careful with like Fool's Landing or the treasures that you don't lose the 2 of the same treasure.
Or
path to
isn't it once?
Yeah, paths.
Like once this is off,
you have to save the other one.
You pull the card out of this deck, though.
Yeah.
So your deck gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
And more likely to bring up the stuff you don't want to flood, yeah.
Right. So you really have to make sure to keep things that you want afloat.
And then you have to watch your pathways. Obviously, if everything is gone, to, like, say, this guy at the very end.
Yeah, we need Fool's Landing up here, and everything's gone leading up to it. All of a sudden, it's really hard to get to. Yeah. Because you can only go this one route.
And you can't move diagonal. I mean,
one guy can move diagonally, and one guy can swim through empty spots, but nobody...
Right, but if you didn't have those 2 characters, there's...
Then you've got the helicopter lift, but again, you have to hope you have the right card. Yeah.
Or, if you're the pilot, you can actually just transport yourself there, but you can't transport... each character has its own unique ability, which is helpful.
Play the ability.
But not always helpful.
Yeah, so. make sure you have an escape route somehow, or you better have the right cards.
You have to make sure you have an escape route for all the people playing, not just yourself, because it's co-op, and if you don't all win, you lose. That's the main thing.
I would say be willing to sacrifice your turn for the greater good always, especially to keep pieces or tiles afloat. I could turn on one of my moves. I could have turned one in and gotten the statue, which would help the overall. But for that turn, I just need to keep some tiles.
I think you had to save Fool's Landing.
Save Fool's Landing and save 2 additional tiles, and I kind of just had to do it. It ended up, in our favor. We won both games. It seems very easy to win.
I think,
but I guess we could probably move
the
into
consensus is that you have to make sure that you're not being competitive against each other. That you really have to work together.
And you're not hung up on getting the cool treasure pieces. Like you said, you have 3 actions. You might have to use them all to shore up and make sure somebody else doesn't sink. And that's just it is what it is. I'll get the treasure next time around.
Let's move into likes and dislikes and kind of. Segue into that way as far as what you did or did not like about this game.
I like that it's a good entry-level co-op game, meaning I played this with my kids, my daughter who's now 10 and my son who's 12, but at the time they're 9 and 11, and with a little help and table talk, which is encouraged because it's a co-op game, you're supposed to let everybody see your cards and everything, you'll win more often than not, I think. For a hardcore game group, that might be a downer. You might be like, yeah, we win this 90% of the time or whatever. But I have lost this. I'd say I probably played it close to a dozen times now.
I know I've lost when we played once.
Yeah, I played about a dozen, maybe even a little bit more than that. And I think I've lost like 3 games or something.
It would seem having this full 6 players.
You can't. It only plays up to 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
6 I think would be too easy.
6,
yeah.
Okay, I would assume that it'd be actually more difficult because.
You think so?
Well, because everybody has spread treasure, and everybody has to pull tiles and pull moves, and so things just happen too fast on the board for everybody to be able to get the treasures to the right individual. I think that would break the game.
With 6 people, I think that the board would disappear too fast.
Right.
You'd almost not.
Yeah,
and you couldn't get the treasures.
I don't think you'd be able to win with 6 people. Almost. I mean, it'd be almost impossible because at the point of having to draw 4 or 5 at a time.
Right,
I mean,
and
the
you
whole
get to the
board
6
would be
pretty quick.
Yeah.
I played with 3 and 4 player. I've never played 2-player. Actually, no, I have played a game with 2-player. And yeah, I don't know if I'd say it's easier or harder any way over the other.
Well,
I mean, the treasures are less spread out with 2. It's easier to exchange, but it's harder to spread around the island to save. The more people you have, the more spread out you can be to shore tiles up. But again, your treasure is all over the place, and no, you have 2 cards that I need, and I have this treasure that you need, and so.
Again, this is a co-op game, so this definitely has the ability to be auto-played by the other individuals on the table to say, no, you're just going to do this on your turn. And because I'm going to do this.
Yeah, that is always kind of a downfall where
somebody else runs your turn for
you.
you.
They pretty much see how your turn needs to play out for the greater good, and you're just like, well, I see that, but I wish I'd come to that conclusion myself.
You could Leroy Jenkins the whole thing and say I'd screw it, and
the major thing that I didn't
walk off the board.
I didn't like about it was that it feels like you're flipping over so many of these, and it just feels like you're constantly trying to save instead of accomplishing goals. And I know it's a very simple game, so that's like half of the game is saving those. And that's just the one thing I kind of didn't like about it is when you're at 5, I mean, you're flipping so many.
But I kind of like that forces choices on you. Do I go for the treasure? Do I try to go over there and trade with Ian like I know I need to do? Or is that an important enough tile that I need to stick around and waste a turn saving it? Because there were definitely, in every game we said, you know what, we can afford to lose that one. That's an outer piece that doesn't have a treasure on it. We can lose that one. And you have to decide what's important and what.
Well, I agree. It just feels like there's so many flipping at one time that you're just like.
Oh, when you get up here, especially like 5 a turn or
because you kind of get before your turn, you kind of get a plan formulated in your mind, and then they all flip over, and you're going,
nope.
Well, that's my other dislike is it's a little hard to pre-plan your turn.
Right. Because
you have to literally wait until you see exactly what happens to the person before you can say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. So there's not much of a pre-planned stage to it.
Oh, I think, though...
That's true. You have to think ahead, but yeah, I guess I never thought about that. At the same time, you can't.
It almost seems like you can't... The moves around the board you can't pre-plan, but the treasures is where you're pre-planning that a lot.
Who needs to have what cards?
I need to have this
you can only have...
that one.
You can only have 5 cards in your hand. and it takes 4 to cash in for the treasure.
Correct.
So if I have 3 stone and 2 fire,
of...
it's like, oh, which one should I go for and who should I give these to?
That was the more
But wasn't it, there's only 5 of a particular type? Like
I believe so.
The Griffin here, there's only 5 of them in the deck. So if you have to have 4, and somebody either has 1 or it's in the discard pile, you have to wait till you reshuffle it. So
yeah, for it to come up again, that can make things difficult.
Yeah, there are some neat points to the game, and some neat kind of strategery.
Strategery. Yeah. People on the interwebs talk about it. We love that word.
The tubes.
Intertubes.
No, it was fun, but do you want
to move on to the review?
Sure.
1 to 10. 1 is terrible. 10 is awesome.
You know, for an entry-level game, it plays really quick. I enjoy it. The pieces are nice. It's very simple. For the few things that I didn't like, I'm going to give it an 8 because it's just...
Wow.
I liked it. It was fun. We played it twice tonight because it plays...
We played it... This was one of the first games we brought to game... I brought to game nights.
And
we played it...
It's just a quick play.
Several times.
If you've got a half hour or 40 minutes and you need to fill some time, or if you just want a light night where you can kind of chat at the table too, it's just a lot of fun. You know, it's simple. All the components are nice, so I'm going to give it an 8 because I wouldn't say that I would beg to play it, but if it came out, sure. You know, or filler space. Yeah, I liked it.
It does make a good filler game, I guess, because it is easily playable in under half an hour even. I like the fact... I'm going to give it a 7. Mostly because it's a good family game. Like I said, I played with my wife and kids, and it's one of the few games I can get my wife to actually play because it's co-op. She's not big into games. The kids like it a lot. It's fairly easy to teach. It's quick to play. And like I said, it's very portable, which is nice because we play all over the place for game night at different people's houses and stuff. As far as our hardcore game group, it's hit the table, I think. Well, we played multiple games each time, but I brought it 3 or 4 different nights.
Yeah.
Spread out over a year and a half. It's just not something I feel like bringing a whole lot. I don't think it is a great gamer's game. Good family game. Good beginner's game. That's what we use it for. That kind of got us into the hobby. Otherwise, then it becomes a filler game after that, I think. So keep that in mind. If you have a big collection, or you're into the bigger, harder, longer games, maybe not for you, but great for families.
I'm kind of more of a novice. I would put more I'd say a 9 just to kind of balance out your score of being
so now we're to make us an 8.
Make it all 8. The reason there really isn't much wrong with the game. It's fun to play. It's very similar to Survive, and I love Survive. I mean, it's great. The whole everything's kind of shifting down. I like the co-op piece versus Survive's independent. There's all the pieces are very easy to play with, very easy to work with. I mean, the only kind of pitfall is this kind of the autoplay feature that we kind of mentioned. I love strategy, and this is full of it. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's just a great game all around.
All right, so that sounds fair enough. Okay, I know we had promised that we were going to do Castles of Burgundy, but Adam wussed out. So hopefully he'll bring it next time.
You know, we live in South Dakota where we had a nice ice storm, and half the town didn't have power, and... Adam got a nice tree through his roof, so he's at home.
He wussed out. In other words, he's at
home
not being here.
nursing his house. So yeah, we're gonna play.
So
what was it? Castles of Burgundy.
Castles of Burgundy. Yes. Right. So tune in then.